The great hall on Prime was filled with silence. Thousands of aliens from dozens of species sat in their seats, their many eyes watching the center stage. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had skin that changed color with their emotions. But today they all wore the same expression: sadness. Ambassador of the species walked slowly to the podium. His tall, thin body moved with grace. His silver skin reflected the soft lights above. He looked out at the crowd and took a deep breath. 200 years ago, he began, his voice soft but clear, we lost them. On the massive screen behind him, images appeared. Blue oceans, green forests, cities of glass and steel, and faces, human faces, smiling, laughing, crying, loving. The faces of a species that no longer existed. The humans, continued, were young among the stars. They had only been traveling through space for 3 centuries when the devourer swarm came. Those monsters, those endless hungry beasts, chose Earth as their target, and humanity stood alone. In the 5th row, a young named watched with different eyes, while others around him wept silver tears, felt something else: doubt. He had spent years studying old records, old files that most had forgotten. Something did not add up. The humans sent us calls for help, said, his voice growing heavy. They begged us to send ships, to send warriors, but the swarm was too fast. By the time our fleets arrived, Earth was burning. The humans were gone. The screen showed the final battle. Human ships, small and brave, flying against a wave of black. Explosions, fire, then nothing. They gave their lives, said, so that we could prepare. Their sacrifice bought us time. We must never forget them. We must never forget humanity. The crowd began to sing a song of mourning. It was beautiful and sad. Did not sing. He was thinking about a file he had found last month. A report that said 12 human ships had been seen leaving the battle. A report that had been marked, classified, and buried. Where did those ships go? The ceremony continued for another hour. Leaders from many species spoke about human courage, human kindness, human spirit. They talked about humans as if they were legends, stories from long ago, but knew that 200 years was not that long. His own grandmother was older than that. After the ceremony ended, walked through the halls of the great building. He passed statues of human heroes. He passed paintings of Earth. He passed a small garden where human flowers still grew, carefully protected. You did not cry, a voice said behind him. Turned, it was Elder, one of the oldest on the council. I was thinking, said carefully. Dangerous habit, said with a small smile. What were you thinking about? Hesitated. Should he share his doubts? Should he tell the Elder about the missing files, the strange reports, the questions that kept him awake at night? Before he could answer, every light in the building turned red. Alarm sounds filled the air, felt his heart beat faster. What is happening? Asked, looking around. A young officer ran past them, his face pale with fear, grabbed his arm. What is wrong? Demanded. The sensors, the officer said, his voice shaking. Ships, hundreds of ships coming out of warp space. Whose ships? Asked. The officer looked at them with wide eyes. We do not know the energy signature. It matches nothing in our records, nothing except. He stopped, unable to finish. Except what? Pressed. Except human warp drives, but that is impossible. The humans are dead. Felt something cold run down his spine. He pushed past the officer and ran toward the main control room. His feet moved faster than his thoughts. This could not be real. This had to be a mistake. The control room was in chaos. Officers shouted at each other. Screens showed data that made no sense. And in the center of everything, Ambassador stood frozen, staring at the main display. 300 ships hung in space above Prime. They were not like any ships had ever seen. They were dark and powerful, built for war but beautiful in their own way. And on each ship, painted in bright white, was a symbol. A blue circle, a planet, Earth. "This is not possible," whispered. "They are dead. We watched them die." "Ambassador," an officer called out, her voice breaking. "We are receiving a transmission, audio and video. It is being broadcast on all frequencies." "Show me," ordered. The screen changed, and for the first time in 200 years, a human face appeared before the Galactic Council. He was an older man with gray hair and dark eyes. His face was lined with age and experience. He wore a uniform of deep blue with silver marks on his shoulders. Behind him, other humans moved with purpose. They were alive. They were real. "This is Admiral Park Ho of the Terran Reclamation Fleet," the man said. His voice was calm but carried the weight of centuries. "We are transmitting to all species of the Galactic Council. Humanity sends its greetings." The control room was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Admiral Park continued. 200 years ago, our ancestors fought and died to protect our world. Many of them fell, but not all. Some escaped. Some survived. And in the darkness of space, far from the eyes of the galaxy, we rebuilt." He leaned forward slightly, and his eyes seemed to look directly at each person watching. "We have returned. Humanity is not extinct. We never were, and we are here to reclaim what was taken from us." The transmission ended. The screen went dark. Felt tears running down his face. Not tears of sadness, tears of something else. Wonder, joy, vindication. He had been right. The humans were alive. Ambassador turned to face the room. His silver skin had turned pale. His hands were shaking. "Contact the full council," he said quietly. "Contact every member species. Everything we thought we knew has just changed." Outside, through the great windows of the control room, the human fleet hung in space like a dark promise. Their ships did not move. They simply waited, patient, confident, alive. Watched them and smiled. The galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Park Ho stood on the bridge of the TRS Enduring Dawn and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the alien ships and the frightened transmissions, was Earth. His grandmother had told him stories about it when he was a boy. The smell of rain on grass, the sound of waves on beaches, the feeling of warm sun on skin. He had never felt any of these things. He had been born in space, on a ship running through darkness. But he carried Earth in his heart, as all his people did. "Admiral," Captain Hana said, walking up beside him, "the Council is demanding we stop our advance. They want us to submit to inspection." Ho smiled without humor. "They want to make sure we are really human. They want to count our ships and weapons. They want to know if we are a threat." "Are we?" Hana asked quietly. Ho turned to look at her. Hana was 43 years old, with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been his second in command for 15 years. He trusted her with his life. "We are whatever we need to be," he said. "For now, we are survivors coming home." The bridge of the Enduring Dawn was large and filled with technology that the galaxy had never seen. Every screen, every console, every system was the result of 200 years of desperate work. When their ancestors had escaped through that unstable wormhole, they had carried only basic tools and limited knowledge. Everything else, they had built themselves. Chief Engineer Bong walked over to them, his thick arms crossed over his chest. Was 55, with a face that always looked unhappy and hands that could fix anything. "The engines are holding steady," he reported. "We can stay here for months if we need to." "Let us hope we do not," Ho said. "What about the other ships?" "All 300 are in good condition. Whatever these aliens throw at us, we can handle it." Ho nodded. He knew was not boasting. The engineer had spent his entire life learning from the wreckage of devourer ships that their ancestors had captured. The technology in their fleet was not human. It was not alien. It was something new, born from survival and necessity. A young woman approached them quickly. Lieutenant So was their communications officer, only 32 years old but brilliant at her job. "Admiral," she said, "I am intercepting transmissions from across the galaxy. The news of our arrival is spreading fast." "What are they saying?" Hannah asked. So's face showed a mix of emotions. Some are frightened. They think we are ghosts or invaders. Some are excited. They remember the stories of humanity and are happy we survived. And some, she hesitated. "Some what?" Ho pressed. "Some are angry. They do not want us to return. They say we will cause problems. They say things were better when we were dead." Ho felt a cold anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. He had expected this. The galaxy had moved on without humanity. They had taken human worlds, human technology, human resources. A return of the rightful owners would threaten many powerful beings. "Keep monitoring," he ordered. "I want to know everything they are saying." So nodded and returned to her station. Ho walked to the center of the bridge and looked at the main screen. It showed the alien fleet gathered at a safe distance, watching them. He wondered what they were thinking. Were they afraid, confused, guilty? "Tell me again," Hannah said softly, standing beside him. "Tell me the story of how we survived." It was an old request. The story was taught to every human child from the day they could understand words. But Ho understood why Hannah asked. They were about to face the galaxy that had let them die. They needed to remember why they were here. 200 years ago, Ho began, the Devourer swarm attacked Earth. Our people called for help, but help was slow to come. The Council said they were gathering forces, preparing strategies, but days passed, weeks passed, and the swarm kept eating. He paused, remembering the recordings he had watched since childhood. The screaming cities, the burning sky, the desperate final broadcasts. "Commander Ho led the final defense of Earth," Ho continued. "He knew they could not win. He knew help would not come in time, so he made a choice. He ordered 12 ships to take as many people as possible and run." 50,000 people, Hannah said quietly, "out of 8 billion. 50,000 people, 12 ships, and one chance," Ho confirmed. "They found an unstable wormhole at the edge of the solar system. Scientists said it was too dangerous. It could tear them apart or send them anywhere in the universe. But Commander said anywhere was better than death. So they jumped. And they emerged in a place no one had ever been. A region of space so far from the galaxy that no star maps showed it. They called it the Hollow Reach." Ho turned to face his crew. Every person on the bridge was listening. They all knew the story, but they listened anyway. For the first 50 years, they simply survived. They found planets with air and water. They grew food in ship gardens. They had children and taught them to hope. My grandmother was born on the ship that became our first space station. She lived her whole life without seeing a natural sky. He took a breath. Then they found the Devourer graveyard, an old battlefield where the swarm had destroyed another species long before they came to Earth. The ships were damaged but not empty. Our engineers studied them. They learned. They adapted. Stepped forward. My grandfather was one of those engineers. He used to say that the Devourers gave us the tools to fight back. Their own technology would be their undoing. Over the next 150 years, Ho said, we built, we grew. From 12 ships, we became a fleet of 300. From 50,000 people, we became 12 million, and we never forgot. We never forgot Earth. We never forgot what was taken from us. He straightened his shoulders and looked at the alien ships on the screen. "We are not here for revenge," he said clearly. "We are not here to conquer or destroy. We are here because Earth is our home, because the Sol system belongs to humanity, because no one has the right to erase us from history." Hannah nodded. "So what do we do now?" "Now we talk," Ho said. "We show them who we are. We make them understand that humanity is not going away. And then we go home." Lieutenant So called out from her station. "Admiral, the Council is requesting a meeting. They want to send a delegation to speak with us directly." Ho smiled. It was the first real smile he had allowed himself in weeks. "Tell them we accept. Let them come see what humanity has become. Let them look into our eyes and know that we are alive, we are strong, and we are here to stay." The message was sent. The meeting was set. And across the galaxy, billions of beings watched and waited to see what would happen when the dead returned to claim their inheritance. The meeting station was neutral ground, a small platform floating in empty space between the human fleet and the gathered alien ships. Admiral Park Ho brought only 4 people with him: Captain Hana for military matters, Diplomat Shin Bai for negotiations, Security Chief Han Young for protection, and Lieutenant So to record everything. The aliens brought twice as many. Ambassador led their group, his silver skin reflecting the cold lights of the station. Beside him walked the young historian, whose eyes never stopped watching the humans. Behind them came officials from 3 other species, each one carrying data pads and worried expressions. The 2 groups met in the center of the station. For a long moment, no one spoke. The humans and aliens simply looked at each other, measuring, wondering. Diplomat Shin Bai broke the silence. She was 53 years old, with calm eyes and a voice like smooth water. She had been trained for this moment her entire life. "Thank you for meeting with us," she said. "I know this is difficult. You believed us dead. Now we stand before you alive and unchanged. That must be confusing." Ambassador nodded slowly. "Confusing is a gentle word for what we feel. 200 years we have mourned you. We have built statues in your honor. We have taught our children about your sacrifice. And now we are here," Bai finished. "Not ghosts, not memories, living beings with needs and rights." Stepped forward, unable to contain himself. "How did you survive? The records show no ships escaped. We saw the final battle. Everyone died." Hana answered him. "Your records are incomplete. During the battle, Commander Ho ordered 12 ships to retreat through an unstable wormhole. It was a desperate choice, but it worked. The wormhole took them to the Hollow Reach, a region of space beyond your maps." "The Hollow Reach," repeated. "We have never heard of such a place." "No one has," Ho said, speaking for the first time. "It is far beyond the edge of known space. Light from there takes thousands of years to reach your sensors. We were invisible, protected, alone." The aliens exchanged looks. This was hard to believe, but the proof stood before them. 12 ships became 300, Ho continued. 50,000 survivors became 12 million. We built colonies, stations, and factories. We raised families and trained warriors. And we waited for the day when we could return. "Why now?" asked. "Why wait 200 years?" "Because it took that long to be ready," Hana said. "We did not want to come back weak and begging. We wanted to return as equals." Security Chief Han Young stood quietly behind the delegation, his eyes scanning everything. He noticed how some of the alien officials kept reaching toward their robes. He noticed how their eyes moved with fear. Something was wrong. "We have questions of our own," Bai said. "Questions about what happened after we left." Looked uncomfortable. "Much has changed. The galaxy has grown. New alliances formed. Old enemies became friends." "And what of human space?" Bai asked. "What of Earth?" Silence. Spoke when his elders would not. After the battle, the council declared human territory open for reclamation. They said it would be wrong to let your worlds go unused. Your colonies were divided among different species. Your technology was studied and Earth. "What about Earth?" Ho asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Earth was strip-mined," said, his voice heavy with shame. "The corporations took everything valuable, metals, minerals, water. When they finished, they left. Now Earth is empty, abandoned, a dead world." The humans were very still. Bai kept her face calm, but her hands were tight. Hana looked at the floor. And Ho felt something break inside him. The home his grandmother had dreamed about, the world his people had longed for across 2 centuries of exile, had been destroyed, not by enemies but by the very beings who claimed to mourn humanity. "You picked over our bones," he said quietly. "While you built statues to honor us, you were stealing everything we left behind." "It was not theft," protested weakly. "You were gone, the resources were needed. The council voted. The council voted to take what was ours because we were not there to stop them," Ho interrupted. "Do not dress it up with pretty words. We know what happened. We came prepared for this." Han Young suddenly moved forward. His hand shot out and grabbed the arm of an official, a reptilian creature with sharp teeth. The cried out in surprise. "He has a weapon," Young announced, pulling a small device from the official's robe. "A neural disruptor, hidden under his clothes." The room exploded into chaos. The aliens shouted and backed away. The humans formed a protective circle around their diplomat, raised his hands in a plea for calm. "Wait, please, this is not what it seems." Ho took the weapon from Young and examined it. His face was like stone. "What is your name?" he asked The creature hissed but said nothing. "His name is Merchant," said, his voice shaking with anger. "He made his fortune selling human technology after the extinction. If humanity returns, his business will collapse." "So he tried to kill us," Hana said, "to keep his profits safe." Ho handed the weapon to Young and stepped very close to He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "I want you to understand something," he said. "We did not survive 200 years in the darkness just to be stopped by a greedy merchant. We did not build 300 ships and train 12 million soldiers just to die in a meeting room. Go back to your masters and tell them what you have seen. Tell them that humanity has returned, and tell them that nothing will stop us from going home." He stepped back. "Ambassador, I had hoped this meeting would be different. I had hoped we could find common ground. But I see now that some in your galaxy do not want us to exist." Looked ashamed. "Admiral, please, this was not planned. Most of the council wants peace. Most species welcome your return." "And the rest want us dead," Ho said. "Good, let them try. We have fought worse than them and survived." Bai placed a gentle hand on Ho's arm. Her calm voice cut through the tension. "We are still willing to negotiate," she said. "But negotiations must happen with honest partners. Remove those who wish us harm and we can talk again. Until then, our fleet will continue toward Sol system. We are going home, with or without your blessing." The meeting ended. The delegations returned to their ships, and as the humans flew back to the enduring dawn, they carried with them a new understanding. The galaxy that had let them die was not sorry. It was afraid, and some would do anything to keep humanity buried. But humanity was done being dead. Humanity was done being forgotten. It was time for the living to reclaim their place among the stars. The Galactic Council was breaking apart. In the great hall where species had worked together for centuries, voices shouted over each other. Fists slammed on tables. Representatives walked out in anger. The return of humanity had destroyed the careful peace that held everything together. Ambassador watched the chaos with tired eyes. He had spent 2 days trying to calm the council, but every effort failed. Half the species wanted to welcome the humans back, to apologize for what had been done to Earth, to make peace. The other half wanted to stop them at any cost. Sat beside him, reading through ancient records on his data pad. The young historian had not slept since the meeting with the humans. He could not stop thinking about their faces. They had not looked like ghosts or legends. They had looked like ordinary beings who had been hurt and wanted justice. "The Dominion is moving ships," said quietly. "I intercepted their communications. They are gathering a war fleet." Closed his eyes. "How many ships?" "Over 500. They plan to intercept the humans before they reach Sol system." "They are fools," said. "They saw the human ships. That technology is beyond anything we have." "They do not care," replied. They fear what happens if humanity comes back strong. They took 3 human colony worlds. They built their new capital on one of them. If humanity reclaims their territory, they'll lose everything. Stood up, I must address the council again. They must understand that war is not the answer. They will not listen, said. They are too afraid. On the bridge of the enduring dawn, Admiral Park Ho was having a similar conversation. Dr. Moon stood before him, her old hands holding a small device. She was 65 years old, the fleet historian, keeper of human memory. Her job was to make sure no one ever forgot what happened to Earth. We have recordings, she said. Video from the final days, audio from the calls for help, documents showing exactly what the council did. Show me, Ho ordered. Activated the device. A holographic screen appeared in the air. On it, a young human woman was crying. Behind her, fire and smoke filled the sky. This is Earth calling any council species. Please help us. The swarm is everywhere. Our cities are burning. We cannot hold them back. Please, anyone, help us. The recording changed. Now it showed a council meeting room, empty except for 3 figures speaking quietly. The humans are requesting immediate reinforcement, one said. And what is our recommendation? Another asked. The swarm is dangerous. We should study their tactics first. Let the humans hold them off while we prepare. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months. The humans will be dead by then. Silence then, yes, but we will be ready. Ho felt his blood turn to ice. They knew we would die and they let it happen. They used us as a test, said. They watched us fight and die so they could learn how to defeat the swarm themselves. And when we were gone, they celebrated their victory and took our worlds. Captain Hana stepped forward. We should broadcast this, show every species in the galaxy what really happened. That could start a war, diplomat Shin Bai warned. If we expose the council, some species might side with us, but others will feel threatened and attack. They are already preparing to attack, Lieutenant So reported from her station. Their fleet is moving towards Sol system. We will meet them in 3 days. Ho looked at the recording still playing on the screen. Human children running from fire. Human soldiers falling under alien claws. Human voices begging for help that never came. My grandmother told me about the waiting, he said quietly. She said the worst part was not the dying. It was hoping that someone would come. Every day watching the sky, praying for rescue ships, and every day nothing. He turned to face his crew. Broadcast everything, every recording, every document, every piece of evidence. Send it to every ship, every station, every planet in the galaxy. Let them see the truth. Let them know what was done to us. So nodded. It will take time to reach everyone. Some species are very far away. We have 3 days before they arrive. Use every minute. On Prime, watched the broadcast with tears running down his face. The recordings were brutal. They showed human cities being destroyed while council leaders argued about strategy. They showed human calls for help being marked as low priority. They showed documents where officials discussed how to divide human territory after the war. This is our shame, said to Ambassador. This is what we did. I did not know, said his voice breaking. I swear I did not know. Does it matter? We benefited from their deaths. We built our peace on their bones, and now they are back and they have proof of everything. The broadcast spread across the galaxy like fire. Billions of beings watched the truth unfold. Some refused to believe it. Some called it lies and propaganda. But many, too many, recognized the voices in the recordings. They remembered the meetings. They knew it was real. On 100 worlds, protests began. Citizens demanded answers from their leaders. Why did we let the humans die? Why did we take their worlds? Why did we never tell the truth? The Dominion everything. Their leaders called the recordings fake, but no one listened anymore. The damage was done. Admiral Ho watched the reports of chaos spread across alien space. He felt no joy in it. He felt no satisfaction. He only felt tired. "This was not revenge," he said to Hana. "This was justice. There is a difference." "I know," she replied, "but it still hurts." "Yes," he agreed, "it does." In the distance, the fleet moved closer. 500 warships against 300 human vessels. The numbers were against them, but Ho had learned something in 200 years of exile. Numbers meant nothing. What mattered was will. What mattered was determination. What mattered was fighting for something that could not be taken away. "The truth is out," he said. "Now comes the test. Will the galaxy stand with us or against us?" Hana looked at him. "And if they stand against us?" Ho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Then we remind them why humans were feared. Not because we are cruel, not because we are evil, but because when we are pushed, we do not fall. We push back." The fleet prepared for battle. The truth spread across the stars, and humanity waited to see if the galaxy would choose redemption or war. The fleet filled the space before Sol's system like a wall of steel and anger. 500 warships, each one armed with the best weapons the Dominion could build. Their commander, Admiral, watched the approaching human fleet with cold eyes. "They are outnumbered," he said to his officers. "They will surrender or die." But even as he spoke, his sensors showed something strange. More ships were arriving, not human ships. Ships, ships, ships from the Pale Union and the Green Council. They were moving to position themselves between the and the humans. "What is this?" demanded. A transmission came through. Ambassador's face appeared on the screen, his silver skin dark with anger. "Admiral, this is the Allied fleet of the Remembering. We have come to stand with humanity. Turn back now, or face the consequences of your actions." Laughed. "The Remembering, you would die for these creatures. They are nothing. They should have stayed dead." Another voice joined the channel. Admiral Park Ho, calm and steady. "We did not ask anyone to fight for us," he said, "but we are grateful they came. Admiral, I give you one chance. Leave now. Let us pass. This does not have to end in blood." "Human blood is all I want," hissed. "Today, I will finish what the Devourers started." "Then you will learn what the Devourers learned," Ho replied. "Humanity does not break easily." The battle began. They launched everything they had. Missiles and energy beams cut through space toward the human fleet. But the human ships moved like ghosts, slipping between attacks, returning fire with precision. Their weapons were strange, not the crude explosions of normal warships, but focused beams that cut through shields like paper. Watch from the flagship, his heart pounding. The human ships were beautiful and terrible, dancing through a storm of destruction while barely taking damage. "How are they doing this?" he asked. Shook his head. "Their technology is beyond ours. They had 200 years to study the Devourers. They learned well." The Allied fleet added their strength to the fight. Vessels provided cover fire. Ships targeted weapons systems. The Green Council's medical ships stood ready to rescue any survivors. For 3 hours the battle raged. Ships exploded. Human ships took damage but kept fighting. Slowly, the wall of steel began to crack. On the bridge of the Enduring Dawn, Admiral Ho directed the battle with steady hands. Captain Hana stood beside him, calling out orders. Chief Engineer Bong worked miracles keeping damaged systems running. Lieutenants So tracked enemy movements and shared information with their new allies. "Flagship is turning," Hana reported. "They are retreating." The fleet broke. One by one, their ships jumped to warp, fleeing the battle they had been so certain of winning. Admiral was among the last to go, his ship damaged and smoking. "This is not over," he transmitted. "Humanity will pay for this." "Send him my regards," Ho replied. "And remind him that he started this fight. We only finished it." The way to Sol system was clear. 3 days later, the human fleet reached Earth orbit. Admiral Ho stood on the bridge, looking at the planet below. It was not the blue-green jewel from his grandmother's stories. The oceans were gray. The land was with mining cuts. The cities were ruins, stripped of everything valuable. But the planet was still there, and life was returning. In places where the strip miners had missed, green things were growing. Animals were spreading across empty lands. Earth was healing, slowly, patiently, without help from anyone. "It is beautiful," Diplomat Shin Bai said softly. "It is home," Ho replied. "Even now, even like this." The council transmitted their official recognition of human sovereignty. Sol system belonged to humanity again. The treaties were signed. The apologies were made. It would take generations to heal the wounds, but the first steps had been taken. A shuttle carried Admiral Ho and his senior officers down to the surface. They landed in what had once been Korea, in a valley that had somehow escaped the worst of the mining. Security Chief Han Young stepped out first, checking for dangers. Then came the others, one by one, setting foot on the soil of their ancestors. Ho knelt and touched the earth with his bare hand. It was cool and damp, real, solid. He felt tears running down his face and did not try to stop them. "Grandmother," he whispered, "I made it, I brought us home." Hana stood beside him. "What now, Admiral?" Ho stood and looked at his people. They were soldiers and engineers, diplomats and historians. They had been born in space, raised in exile, trained for a day they never knew would come. And now they stood on Earth. "Now we rebuild," he said. "Not as the humans of 200 years ago, we cannot be them, but as something new, something stronger, something that will never be forgotten or abandoned again." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small package. Inside was a seed, a Korean pine seed kept safe for 2 centuries in the memory vaults of the fleet. "My grandmother gave this to my mother," he said, "and my mother gave it to me. She said to plant it on Earth when we came home." He dug a small hole in the ground with his hands. He placed the seed inside and covered it gently with soil. "For everyone who died in the burning," he said quietly. "For everyone who was born in exile. For everyone who dreamed of this moment and never lived to see it. We remember. We survived. We came home." The others gathered around him. Some were crying, some were smiling, some were both. High above, the human fleet hung in orbit. On the surface, the first seed of the new Earth took root. And across the galaxy, beings of 100 species watched and wondered what would happen next. In the hollow reach far from all these events, human sensors detected a strange signal. Something old, something familiar, something moving. Dr. Moon studied the data with worried eyes. The devourers, the monsters that had destroyed Earth 200 years ago. They were not gone. They had been sleeping, and now perhaps they were waking up. She would tell the Admiral later. For now, let him have this moment. Let all of humanity have this moment. They had earned it. They had suffered for it. They had fought and died and been reborn for it. Whatever came next, they would face it together. That was what humans did. That was what humans had always done. They endured, they remembered, they came home. And they would not be broken again.